People who go to bed at roughly the same time every night have measurably better mood and energy the next day than people who sleep the same total hours but at random times. Same amount of sleep, completely different outcome. I wanted to know why, so I stopped watching videos that all recommend the same 5 generic tips and went straight to the actual sleep research, university studies, clinical trials on circadian biology, and what I found was more specific than anything I'd seen online. It's 5 things happening in your body every single evening that determine how you sleep, and one simple thing you can do tonight that changes how you feel tomorrow morning. Let's talk about what those actually are. Finding number 1. Your body starts preparing for sleep hours before you actually lie down, and most people are working against that process without realizing it. And this one shift alone can meaningfully improve how quickly you fall asleep tonight. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Research on melatonin secretion shows that levels typically begin rising in the evening, roughly 2 hours before your natural sleep time, triggered largely by darkness and dropping light levels. Why does this matter for your mood and energy the next day? Melatonin doesn't just make you sleepy. It's part of a larger signaling cascade that tells your entire body it's safe to shift into repair mode, lowering core temperature and preparing your nervous system to downshift. When you keep bright artificial light on right up until the moment you get into bed, you're actively suppressing that rise, which delays sleep onset and reduces how deep your early sleep cycles end up being. Think about how this shows up in a normal evening. Someone sitting under bright overhead lights and a bright phone screen at 10 p.m. is essentially telling their brain it's still daytime, even though their body is trying to wind down underneath that signal. Do this. Dim the lights in your home, starting about 90 minutes before bed, using lamps instead of overhead lighting, and let that darkness cue your body naturally. Finding number 2. Screen light before bed does more than just keep you awake. It delays your entire sleep architecture. And this is where mistake number 1 shows up for almost everyone. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Studies on blue light exposure found that reading on a light-emitting device before bed, compared to reading a printed book, delayed melatonin release, increased the time it took participants to fall asleep, and reduced how alert they felt the following morning, even though total sleep time was similar between groups. Why does blue light specifically matter? Your eyes contain light-sensitive cells that are especially responsive to blue wavelengths, and these cells communicate directly with the part of your brain that controls your circadian clock. Bright blue light in the evening essentially convinces that internal clock that it's still midday, delaying the release of melatonin and pushing your entire sleep cycle later, even if you still get into bed at your usual time. The mistake most people make isn't screens themselves. It's using them at full brightness right up until lights out, often propped up inches from their face. Picture 2 people going to bed at the same time. One scrolls on a bright phone until the second their eyes close. The other switches to a dim lamp and a book for the last half hour. The second person typically falls asleep faster and reports feeling more rested the next morning, even with the same total hours in bed. Do this. Switch your phone to night mode or reduce brightness significantly in the hour before bed. And if possible, swap screen time for reading or quiet conversation for the last 20 minutes. Finding number 3. Your body temperature has to drop for deep sleep to happen, and how you shower or cool your room directly controls that. And this one is almost never mentioned outside of specialized sleep research. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Research on thermoregulation and sleep shows that core body temperature needs to drop by roughly 1 to 2 degrees to initiate deep sleep, and that a warm bath or shower 90 minutes before bed can actually help trigger that drop more effectively than going straight to a cool room, because it pulls blood toward the skin's surface and speeds up heat loss afterward. Why does this matter for how you feel tomorrow? Deep sleep, also called slow-wave sleep, is when the most physical restoration happens. Tissue repair, immune system consolidation, and clearing of metabolic waste from the brain. If your body can't drop its core temperature efficiently, whether from a room that's too warm or heavy blankets trapping heat, you spend less time in that restorative stage, even if your total hours in bed look normal. This is why a stuffy, overheated bedroom often leaves people waking up groggy despite a full night's sleep. Do this. Keep your bedroom cool, somewhere around 16 to 19 degrees Celsius, if you can control it, and consider a warm shower about 90 minutes before bed, rather than right before lying down. Finding number 4. What you eat and drink in the evening directly interferes with your ability to reach deep sleep. And this is a mistake that quietly undoes an otherwise perfect nighttime routine. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Caffeine has a half-life of approximately 5 to 7 hours in most adults, meaning a coffee at 4 p.m. still has roughly half its caffeine active in your bloodstream at 10 or 11 p.m. And research on alcohol and sleep shows that while it may help people fall asleep faster initially, it significantly reduces REM sleep and increases nighttime awakenings later in the night, fragmenting sleep even when total hours appear sufficient. Why does this matter for mood specifically? REM sleep is where emotional processing and memory consolidation largely happen. Fragmented or reduced REM sleep is strongly linked to worse next-day mood, irritability, and difficulty regulating stress. Someone who has a glass of wine to relax before bed often falls asleep quickly, then wakes up multiple times in the second half of the night without fully realizing it, leaving them tired and short-tempered the next day, despite technically sleeping 8 hours. Do this. Avoid caffeine after early afternoon, and if you drink alcohol, try to finish it several hours before bed rather than as a nightcap right before lying down. Finding number 5. An inconsistent bedtime does more damage than a slightly short one, and almost nobody treats it as the priority it actually is. And this is the finding that ties everything else together. Here's something almost nobody talks about. Research on sleep regularity, published in respected sleep journals, has found that irregular sleep timing is associated with worse cardiovascular and metabolic markers, and in some studies, a higher mortality risk, independent of total sleep duration, meaning two people sleeping the same number of hours can have very different health outcomes based purely on consistency. Why does this happen? Every organ in your body runs on its own circadian schedule, synced to your sleep-wake pattern. Your liver, your immune system, your hormone release, all of them expect a predictable rhythm. When your bedtime shifts by 2 or 3 hours between weeknights and weekends, you're essentially giving your body mild jet lag on a weekly basis, forcing every system to keep readjusting instead of settling into an efficient rhythm. This is why someone who sleeps 7 hours consistently every night often feels sharper and more emotionally steady than someone who sleeps 9 hours on some nights and 5 on others. Do this. Pick a wake-up time you can hold every day, including weekends, and let your bedtime follow naturally from that, rather than letting your bedtime drift and forcing your wake time to chase it. So here's what we covered. Dimming lights 90 minutes before bed lets melatonin rise the way it's supposed to. Reducing blue light exposure from screens protects your natural sleep timing. Managing your body temperature through a warm shower and a cool room helps you reach deep sleep faster. Watching caffeine and alcohol timing protects your REM sleep and next-day mood. And keeping a consistent wake time matters more than chasing extra hours here and there. None of this requires a gym, expensive gadgets, or a complete lifestyle overhaul. Pick one, just one. Try it for 3 days. Dim your lights tonight, or move your evening coffee earlier in the day, and notice how you feel falling asleep and waking up. Come back and tell me in the comments what you tried and what changed. And if this helped you understand something you hadn't heard before, share it with someone who's been struggling with their sleep and blaming themselves for it. They need this more than you know. Next time, we're breaking down exactly what happens in your body during each stage of sleep, and why the hour before midnight matters more than most people realize. See you in the next one.